So thank you all for coming this evening. It's an honor to be here with you and an honor to be here with you, Elijah.
You too.
Elisha Goldstein is a wonderful psychologist here in town, the co-founder with his wife, Steph Goldstein, of the Mindful Living Center.
Yeah, Center for Mindful Living.
Center for Mindful Living, and it's here in Los Angeles, in West Los Angeles. And it's a great place where they have 6-month trainings in mindful living that are a really innovative way of bringing mindfulness into your life. Elijah's written many books, is the co-author of a fantastic workbook on MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and also Uncovering Happiness, a beautiful mindfulness guide to how to work with depression. And so it's a pleasure to be here with you, Elijah.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Thank you
so much. Well, Dan, many of you know him. I'll just give him a little background. Grew up in Los Angeles, and graduated from USC as your undergrad, right? And then went to Harvard Medical School. Yep. You know, type of places. You know, came back, UCLA, child psychiatrist. Worked there, created the Mindsight Institute. You were on the board, one of the founding members of the Mindful Awareness Research Center at UCLA, right? Yeah. Yep. And since that time, wrote also just a few books. You know, it's amazing how prolific you are. And in the last number of years, actually, these books have been just incredibly internationally renowned. I mean, you started out with kind of the Developing Mind, or actually Mary Hartzell.
No, Developing Mind was first, right?
Yep, and then that, and then the last number of years, I mean, all his books have been like knocking out the New York Times bestsellers. You had the Whole Brain Child that you co-authored, Brainstorm that came out. Then he wrote books on simple topics like mind. You know. Then he has the audacity to write a book after that called Aware. I mean, you know, so anyway, so here we are to talk really about kind of this really brilliant book. I hope you all have, if you haven't read it yet, we'll get a copy and read it, because it was about 10 years ago. Now, I don't know how long. It was quite a while ago, where I was in a small room with you and a handful of people, and we were going through the Wheel of Awareness. And it was a really powerful experience. And since then, and in reading this, I've seen how you've kind of taken that. You've taken it individually with, and we can talk about this, but with well over 10,000 people, and had feedback on and studies based on the Wheel of Awareness. But really, how it's become a powerful tool to dip beneath our personal and social conditionings, to experience a great deal of freedom from really the suffering and struggles that a lot of people experience, both individually and interpersonally. And so hopefully we'll get to that. And so just one thing I want to say about Dan before I ask him a question that you're going to respond to is one of the things that's so inspiring to him about me, one of the things that you're so inspired about me is, he could talk to that afterwards, that's the next time. One thing so inspiring is how really at your core, you have this innate curiosity about life, about how life works, and this longing to help us find common ground with each other, this longing to help us bridge the gap and reach that place where we feel and understand a sense of belonging to each other. And I find that so powerful, and I've actually found it most powerful in this book that you've put out. I think this is like it's your latest book, but I think I really think it's one of your greatest books. So, thank you. And so thank you for writing this. So let's start off with this book, because I think this is a good question to set the stage with, really, which is, you wrote the book Mind. So, and some of you have heard him talk about mind before, but I want to set the stage with that, because I think that creates a foundation. What is mind? What is this thing?
Yeah. Thank you. Well, you'd think, with the kind of curiosity that you're talking about, that I was a graduate of New Road School. Because as we heard from Lutheran, curiosity is like the main hallmark of what you want your students to graduate with. So I wish I had been a student of yours, Lutheran. That would be great. Yeah. So this is a great setting to talk about this question of mind. And, the book Aware builds on everything that came before. So I think the most relevant way of addressing that question, because obviously you could spend months talking about that issue, is that the word mind in the field you're trained in, psychology, and I was trained as a researcher in psychology, I'm an attachment researcher, and in my professional training as a psychiatrist, there is no definition of mind.
Right.
And so we have this very strange set of fields called the field of mental health, all the different divisions that actually haven't defined what it is we're doing. So it just made me really feel a little confused. So my life and work partner, Caroline Welch, is here, and she knows I would go out of my mind, even though I didn't know what it was, to try to answer that question. So I've been kind of obsessed with that for the last, 30 years. And the simplest thing to say about the mind is that though Hippocrates said it's basically an output of your brain and your head, which 2,500 years ago was a cool thing to say, it's just been said over and over again. And in academia, as you know, it's the classic line. Even, the field of psychology offers a definition of mind as brain activity related to feelings, thoughts, and behavior. And this view is so common, it's just, William James 125 years ago didn't even want to question it. So this book, Aware, helps you actually dive deeply into this practice called the Wheel of Awareness to explore your own mind, but it does it in a way that allows you to see that seeing the mind as only equivalent to brain activity is actually quite limiting and limited. And we see mind as actually an emergent property of energy flow. And so if you think about, let's say, the experience of awareness as being a fundamental part of mental life, then you want to ask questions not so much about what are the brain correlates of consciousness, which has been like the holy grail for neuroscientists for a long time, but instead you'd ask a different kind of question, which is how might awareness be related to the science of energy? And then you come to a very different set of propositions that I try to explore in the book with the help of our daughter Madeline Siegel's drawings, so it kind of makes the mind visible. And then you see that, wow, there's a potential way of taking mind as an emergent property of energy and seeing it as, when you look at the mathematics, the kind of systems of mind. So if the mind is in your brain, Elijah, and it's also in your body, but it's also happening between you and me now and between us and everyone in the room, then you can say, well, what could be both within the body and between the body, let's say that's your mind, and the room around here? And one of the answers would be energy flow. And energy can be pure energy, like blah, 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 or it can be information. Either way, it's energy patterns. And then you can actually look at the system is basically called a complex system. It's a long story, but then you come to the proposal that the mind might be what mathematics points out in complex systems is an emergent phenomenon, which is called self-organization. And all of that is actually necessary to come to the following statement. If the mind is the emergent, embodied, self-organizing process that is regulating energy and information flow, then you can ask, if that's the definition of mind that you put out there, what would a healthy mind be? And then you get this answer, which is a process that differentiates and links. We'll just call that integration, creates optimal self-organization. So what happened to me years ago before I met you and you were in the room, with my patients I was saying, if this process called integration is health and consciousness is needed for change in schools or in parenting or in therapy, what if you integrated consciousness? So around that table that you saw, there was a table like this with a glass center, and I said, what if you integrated consciousness by putting the knowing of consciousness in the visual metaphor of the hub of this table, and then on the rim you put the knowns, and you took a metaphoric spoke of attention and systematically moved it around the rim, so you differentiated the different elements, like what you hear, what you see, what you smell, what you taste. In the first segment of this rim of the table, then in the second segment we did the interior signals of the body, and then in the third segment we did mental activities like feelings, thoughts, and memories, and then we moved the spoke over to the final segment, which was our relational connections. And then with some patients, they had the idea of just like exploring the hub itself, so we'd bend the spoke around. And they started getting better. They started reducing anxiety when they did this practice, alleviating mild to moderate depression. They started dealing with trauma more effectively. So it was like, I thought it was just kind of strange thing about the table or something in my office, or I don't know what it was. So I started teaching it to people like yourself, to my students who were therapists, and they started getting positive experiences themselves. They did it with their clients. They got better. So then I did it, as you said, with 10,000 people systematically, had people take the microphone, and the results were so similar no matter what a person's background was. I had to write it up in this book, Aware, to say what might be going on that we could get a deeper understanding of what this awareness really was and why did it help people. So in the book I put 5 examples of cases of people and how they found the wheel helpful for themselves. So that's making a transition between mind and aware.
Yeah, well that's okay.
And by the way, I didn't want to call that Aware. I wanted to call the book The Wheel of Awareness, and my publisher said, absolutely not.
Stick with the single word.
So I was walking with my daughter, our daughter Maddie, in Brooklyn, and where she works for an urban farming thing, and so, but she's also an illustrator. So she says, I said, what's up? I said, well, they just called. They said, I can't use the name of the book, Wheel of Awareness. She goes, okay. I said, what are you going to call it? She said, and I said, I have no idea. So we're walking. She says, just call it Aware. So I said, oh my God, that's brilliant. And so I called up the publisher. The publisher heard it. She went to her PR people. And they said, that's it.
Just seems to happen that way sometimes.
Yeah, especially our daughter. She's got a lot of wisdom like her mother.
Yeah, sure. Can you say a little bit more about, okay, so there's this wheel of awareness. I love that. So you go through your senses, you're coming to your senses on one part of it.
Yeah, the five outside senses.
You're coming to your body, grounding in your body, having awareness of your body.
Sixth sense, yeah.
Then you're going to your thoughts, your emotions, these other parts that are coming out as mental activities.
Yep.
Then we're going outside, which you were talking about when you talk about mind, right? You're going outside. You're saying the mind is not self. We ourselves. So there's 2 questions I have here. We ourselves are not just limited to this body and this skin, right? We have this inter-self that's there. Okay, so that's the second question, so hold that for a second. The first question is, why? Can you explain why, in doing this wheel of awareness, and by the way, we're not going to do the wheel of awareness here tonight due to time, but you can go to drdansiegel.com, is that where it is? And you can do the audio. You can listen to it and get guided through it.
Yeah, and you should take your time. How many of you, we couldn't see when we were in the back, how many of you have a regular reflective or meditative practice? Raise your hand. So it looks like about, what?
A good amount.
A good 3/4, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is, if you don't have a practice, you want to really go slowly so you don't get overwhelmed and feel like, oh, I can't do this is too much. So that's why in a 45-minute time, when then we're going to have Q&A, Elijah and I talked about it. We thought, it's better to actually go slowly so you can feel really solid in doing it. So that's why we're not doing it tonight. But yes, so for free, people come to our website, they stream it, and it's great. Yeah. So you can do it from the resources tab.
Yeah, resources tab. Try it out. Have an experience. See what you notice. Be curious. Right.
Exactly.
Why? When you say, I give it to this person, that person, the other person, they have anxiety, they have trauma, this, and they all come out, there's a feeling of more freedom from that, the suffering, the struggle answer. Why is that working that way when they do this practice?
Yeah. So that's why I wrote the book.
Okay, sure.
No. But so it's a great question.
Yeah,
I want to support your question because that's exactly why I wrote the book.
Sure.
Because of that question.
Yeah.
because people were getting better. And I'll give you an example. I did this in a 3-hour workshop at UCLA the other day as a fundraiser for the Mindful Awareness Research Center. And a woman took the microphone. This is what we do. We do it, and then people take the microphone. And it's a beautiful opportunity to share. And she said, I was in a really bad mood before I did the wheel. I did the wheel, and now I feel really, really happy. And this happens like over and over again. So she said, what happened? Just like you're saying, what happened? You know, why does it do this? I have this experience. I do this practice every day. This is my daily practice. And it's kind of like brushing your teeth. People say, well, if you do it once, is that enough? And I go, well, is brushing your teeth once enough? You know, I mean, so it's that kind of thing. You know, it's like if brushing your teeth is to dental hygiene, what a practice like this is to mental hygiene. Right? And so you want to think of it as a regular practice. And if people say, I don't even have 1 minute to do, then I said, then do it for 2 minutes, you know, because you're that busy that you don't have 1 minute to devote to your health because, you know, we'll talk about the health benefits later, but in terms of these effects, the simple answer, which is not enough, is to say you're integrating your mind, and it can take the chaos or rigidity that is basically how to divide up human suffering. And it moves you into a central flow of a river of harmony, which has 5 qualities. It's flexible, adaptive, coherent, which means resilient, basically, energized and stable. So that's like the superficial way of responding to the question. Like if we were on an elevator, I'd say, yeah, it integrates consciousness, so it's integrating your mind, so it's creating the faces flow. Done, and then goodbye. You know, but I think what's really happening, in addition to that, but the deeper answer is that I believe, and I talk a lot about this in the book, that the hub of awareness actually looks like it is a certain state of what's called a probability curve. That, and let me, can I do like a 2-minute thing on this?
Do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the complicated thing. If you say the mind is an emergent property of energy, which basically allows us to take the second question you were going to ask, which is there an intermind and is there an inner mind? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. So there's a relational mind that you could call the inner self, and there is an inner mind, this inner self, and they're both good, they're just differentiated, and we spend too little time working on the relational mind. In families at home, we don't emphasize it for parenting, schools don't emphasize it enough, organizations don't emphasize it enough, society doesn't emphasize it enough, and it's kind of like living like a candle where all you are is the wax and you're not the light.
Okay, I just mentioned something. I don't think it's not that it's not only that they don't emphasize it enough. I think what you're doing, which is I think what's so powerful, what you're not necessarily even mentioning, is that there's not a framework of understanding of what the inner self is and the relational mind. We all understand that we have relationships with people, right? And different relationships in our lives, but this idea that there's actually, and maybe, you know, I don't know if we want to touch on this, but the more of what's coming out in kind of the quantum world and quantum physics, that this energy and information flow is going between us, and we're not quite as separate as we think. You know, as Einstein said, that optical delusion of consciousness, the sense of separateness that we have, and that we are actually far more interconnected than we know. And what I found, you know, I got to say, what's so powerful about this is that you're giving a framework, and you're using science to do it, which allows people to open up and take that leap of understanding how interconnected we really are. And I think that you talk about that when you talk about the plane of possibility. You know, that's there, and I think that what you were talking about with the hub, that essential home.
Yeah. So let me build up to that so people can get what that means exactly. So. So once you start there, that this mind thing, which no one seems to want to define for some reason, and even in philosophy of mind they say you shouldn't define it, but if you say it's an emergent phenomenon of energy, then the next step is you go to the experts in energy and you ask them, what is energy? And so I had a chance to spend a week with 150 physicists and just constantly ask them this question, and this is what they said. energy is the movement from possibility to actuality, period. In whatever form it takes, electrical energy, chemical energy, light energy, sound energy. So then if you take that statement and turn it into a graph, which Maddie did so beautifully in the book, you can put at the bottom of the graph ultimate possibility, which is, by the way, equal to massive uncertainty. Like if I was going to say one of a million words, and what's all of our chances of guessing what, not mine, but yours, guessing what word I'm thinking, be 1 out of a million. You put that near 0 at the bottom of this graph. But then as I said ocean, it would pop up to the 100% actuality place, right? So now what you have is you have this graph which has a diagram of a peak of certainty. And if there were, let's say, 1 of 5 oceans I was going to pick, it wouldn't be down near 0, it would be 1 out of 5. So you'd have a plateau of elevated probability. And then you'd go all the way to the bottom if you made the graph three-dimensional with time as the cross-axis and diversity going in and out, the number of things happening all at once. You would have a plane, and that's the plane of possibility you're referring to. So the plane of possibility on this graph is where you have ultimate potentiality rests there. So the movement from that place into actuality is what physicists mean by energy flow. So I took that graph, and I took the 10,000 person study, and I looked at the recorded results of when people bend the spoke around into the hub. And how many of you have done the Wheel of Awareness, just so I can see? Okay, so there are a handful of people here. So here's what happens every time in workshops I do this. People will take the microphone. Doesn't mean it happens to everyone, but this happens every time when you have a group of people. People will say, I explored pure awareness, awareness of awareness, and time disappeared. I felt love like I've never felt before. I felt connected to everything. I felt joy. I felt the sense of peace. For some, it's I felt God. I felt this incredible sense of openness. Some say, I felt it was completely empty, yet completely full. And I have no idea what I mean by that, but I felt it. This is what people say. So if you take those statements and you ask the question, what does the plane of possibility feel like? And the plane of possibility corresponds to what a physicist calls the quantum vacuum, or the sea of potential. It's the formless source of all form. Now, people would hear me talk about this years ago when I was writing about all this, and they'd think, you're nuts. You're out of your mind. Now that you define the mind, you're out of it, man. You know, because it was so weird. And so, fortunately, in July of 2018, on the cover of Scientific American, an extremely conservative scientific journal, there was an article saying, when does the quantum realm meet the classical Newtonian realm? And I think what happens is we're born into a body, and if you aren't familiar with these two things, basically, when energy is in very small quantities called quanta, like an electron or a photon, it operates by what are called quantum laws. And those laws don't seem, at least on the surface, to apply to large objects like our body or an airplane. And those are how you experience Newtonian or classical laws, like certainty in the classical world, uncertainty and probability in the quantum world. And I think what happens is this plane of possibility is a quantum state. And what happens is it's kind of like when you go for a swim and you're swimming under the water and then you come up for a breath. You're doing the breaststroke, you know? You come up for a breath, you're in the air realm, you go beneath, you're in the water realm. No one freaks out saying, oh my God, there's a water realm and an air realm, this is like weird. We do have a quantum realm and a Newtonian realm, so much so that somebody even asked me when they did this practice and got into the hub, and they said, oh my God, I live near Sir Isaac Newton's house. You've got to do this Wheel of Awareness practice around the apple tree. So we did. And it was amazing. And we paid our homage to Sir Isaac. But the fact is,
You can watch that video.
yeah, it's wild. It's wild. So anyway, so I think that's what's going on. So the reason people get better is because these plateaus and peaks imprison us into depression, anxiety, implicit racial bias, feeling of being separated from the whole world, thinking you're a separate self. And those are all what you call plateaus or peaks. So when you cultivate this capacity, the wheel is a metaphor, to drop out of your rim would be the way you describe it in wheel terms, and into the hub, you're saying, I'm not going to get lost in socially constructed racism or genderism or belief that I'm a separate self, but I'm going to drop into this plane of possibility where, amazingly, you not only become aware, why that is I don't know, no one knows, but you do become aware, it seems like, and in this proposal, you pause before an impulse, and you have the actual choices that you can now make from this plane of possibility. All the other options rest there in this mathematical space. And time disappears. That's the thing. In the quantum realm, there's no arrow of time. There's no directionality of change. And I think that's why people say it feels timeless. And as you're beautifully pointing out, the interconnectivity of what's been proven in the quantum realm of entanglement becomes pretty apparent.
Okay, so we could go super deep with this. And I have a question.
Is this okay we're talking like this? Or is it TMI?
I have a question, though. I have a question, which is, so this is a lot. There's a lot of science here, and your experience of science, and with all these scientists, 150 scientists, and coming to understand possibility and actuality, and coming to the plane of possibility. And I have a question. I know that you were really close with John O'Donohue, right? And
in Ireland we say John O'Donohue, and in America we say John O'Donohue.
Well, you know,
but you have to figure out which country you're speaking
I was
to.
actually recently corrected by an Irish guy because I was mentioning him, and he said it's not John O'Donohue. And you know, he oftentimes talked about how there's this invisible connection between all of us, and he talked in poetry, and he was considered himself a mystic, and I know you both were close. You had a relationship, a friendship, and he's passed now, and I'm curious about. So there's the quantum world, and there's all this science, but there's also this poetry and mysticism, which is something I used to be really connected to, or continue to be, you know, in that kind of more poetic world as well. And I'm wondering what influence he had on you with his poetry and mysticism when it comes to this understanding of this sense of belonging that's now described more in scientific terms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did his poetry and soul, you know, penetrate this?
That's a beautiful question. You know, in honor of John's life, LA Live Talks sponsored an evening devoted to John O'Donohue, that I have to ask Ted, but I think that's up on the site, isn't it, Ted, somewhere? Where are you, Ted? So we did Diane Ackerman and I did a whole evening devoted to John, and we played some tapes on John and stuff like that. Yeah, so he and I were very close. I mean, we used to call each other twins. Maybe it's a different kind of Irish twins than what people usually mean by that. So what I would say is this, is John was trained as a Catholic priest. He had been a priest. He got his doctoral degree in philosophy. He was a poet, and he was an Irish mystic. And he was, when we first met, it was actually, Caroline had gone to study with John in Ireland, and she insisted that I go study with John, so he and I became friends, and we basically were friends with both of us, but John and I started writing a book together, and we started teaching a lot together, and it was like this love fest because I didn't know anything about mysticism or religion or anything like that. It's not my background, and he didn't know much about science, and so we would find this common ground. So your first part of your question is like, how did it influence me? You know, John's definition of a mystic was someone who believed in the reality of the invisible. And that really opened my eyes because I said to John, even though I'm trained as a scientist, any true scientist would need to be a mystic because you would know that your body, its capacity to conceive of things and certainly to perceive things, would be really limited compared to what reality had to dish out. So it would be hubris for you to say, well, I know everything, I'm a scientist. which is a very unscientific thing to say, that a lot of scientists say, right? So there was this love fest because I said to John, I said, that is such a scientific thing to say, you know, to believe in the reality of the invisible, but to actually test it by direct experience. So John and I were doing all sorts of fun little shenanigans together, but because he was a rogue of the first order. I mean, he loved having fun, and he would always say, you know, all these hilarious things. But so that was really inspiring for, I think, for both of us, Caroline and I, and he was, and for me, and he was really loved our kids too, Maddie and Alex, and so it was a huge loss for the world, obviously, and his family, and for us, and you know, his friends. But how that's persisted since that time is that that second thing you're talking about, that John would really believe in the deep interconnectivity of reality, really stuck with me. And when John and I were together, I really wasn't that familiar with quantum physics and all that kind of stuff. So right before we had a big celebration of his life in Ireland, right before that, for some reason I got this paper he wrote for the Plato Society of Dublin. That's this 35-page paper called The Poetics of Possibility. And I read it when I was working in England, just reading, and I was almost like falling off my chair because the statements he makes about what Aristotle said and other philosophers that he was quoting were almost word for word with the translation I had made in this book of quantum physics and its possible relationship to the mind. And yet John had written it 10 years ago, and I had never seen that paper. So I felt like it was almost like alive in us, you know. And so I think there were deep influences in this event. The president of Ireland came to honor John the first night, and as happens in Ireland, you know, we're all hanging out at the bar, and the president comes by me by the bar, and I said, well, how did you know John? He goes, you know, good friends with John, and the last thing he did was a talk called The Poetics of Possibility in Dublin, and I told him to turn it into a paper. And so we had this deep discussion of that paper, and it was just absolutely fascinating. The president of Ireland is a philosopher, you know, and some, you know, presidents really have this deep knowledge of things. And so he was deeply knowledgeable about philosophy, and it was absolutely beautiful to have this deep intellectual discussion about the nature of truth and reality, and in this view, possibility is the source of creativity. So it comes back to your first question. The hub for, let's say, a school, not just like New Roads here, but for any school, the idea is, can you allow students to tap into the hub of their mind, this metaphor of a wheel, which is the plane of possibility. So instead of just answering questions on a test, which would be these peaks, that would be points on the rim of the wheel, which we're trained to do. I know the answer, I know the answer, I know the answer. Yeah. How do you drop into the vastness of this hub, this plane of possibility, where innovation arises, so curiosity is not only kept alive, but it thrives. This is what the wheel does, and this is what people experience.
It sounds like, in some ways, the wheel for kids and for adults too, it really encourages a growth mindset.
Completely.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you an example of a 5-year-old where it is the growth mindset.
Yeah.
So I get an email from a teacher, because I work a lot in schools.
Yeah.
So this teacher writes to me, Dan, I got to tell you what just happened. This boy, let's call him Billy, was kicked out of one school in kindergarten for beating up a kid. Transferred to this new public school, where she teaches all of her kids the wheel of awareness in kindergarten. And she says she teaches all the kids that, so Billy learned it. The next day, Billy comes to her and says, Miss Smith, is at recess, you've got to give me a break because I'm out on the yard. Joey took my blocks and I'm about to hit him. I'm lost on my rim. I got to get back to my hub.
You mean he didn't use the hand model? He went straight to the rim?
This wasn't the hand model. He went straight there. The hand model would have been good too. Yeah. And so, so you can say, well, how does a 5-year-old do that? Well, the issue is this thing, not even as a meditation, but just as an image, a visual image of the mind, empowers people like Billy, who may not have learned that he could have a choice to have the growth mindset you're talking about. He didn't have to just do what he kept on doing before, either from his school or his neighborhood or his family. However he learned to hit someone when he was mad, now he could learn a different way. And the fascinating thing when you look at the science beneath this is that hub. You could say, well, what's the big deal about a hub? That hub is the plane of possibility. So it gives you a pause. So Billy could pause between the plateau, which would have been the impulse, before it turned into the peak of a hit. And from the plane where awareness arises, he puts in a pause. And not only is it the pause and the awareness, but now, literally, that is the space of potential energy, because the plane itself is this potentiality, where other choices exist. And here's the thing, and this is what's blown my mind in doing this 10,000 person study. I was asked to go to another country to do the Wheel of Awareness in the parliament, because they were having all sorts of trouble with immigrants and all sorts of things. And so we did the Wheel of Awareness, and after people do it, people share, and then we take a break. And then during the break, one of the parliamentarians comes up to me and he goes, you know, I didn't share during the sharing time. And I said, yeah, I kind of noticed that. And he goes, do you want to know why? And I said, yeah, I'd like to know why. He goes, well, you know that part when you bend the spoke around in the hub? And I said, yeah, I know that part. And he goes, and he gets really quiet, and he looks right in my eyes, and he goes, I have never felt so much love before in my life. And I'm just staring at him. He goes, I have never felt so connected to people and never felt so much love. And then we're just silent, right? Okay. And I go, and you didn't want to share that? He goes, oh no, I wasn't going to share that. I said, well, why not? He goes, because they think I was weak. And there's this silence between the two of us. We're just kind of staring at each other, just like this. And I go, so can I ask you a question? And he goes, sure. And I go, I understand you didn't want to look weak. He goes, oh no, I didn't want to look weak. I said, but when you're making public policy, like setting up law, do you leave love out of the reasoning? And then his eyes get really, really big. He wags his finger at me, and he runs over to his parliamentarians. I don't know what they were talking about, but they talked a lot. But this is the idea. So when Billy drops into the hub, even with this idea, I think love and awareness are the same thing. And even if you look at the brain correlates of pure awareness and the brain correlates of pure love, they're identical, right? It's neural integration. I mean, we can talk about that. But so this is where when you get kids to not be taught to just be on their rim, to have the answer to every test, or to know who's in the in-group, who's in the out-group, and to have all this certainty, but to learn to be comfortable with uncertainty. And to, because that's what curiosity is, say, can I have the courage to be wrong, right? And that's the kind of world where when you ask questions like that, it's joining others, rather than, I have the answer, I'm right, you're wrong, pushes us away.
Yeah, so we can learn to be both connected and respecting of our own differences with each other at the same time. Can I take this out a little bit more?
Yeah.
So the wheel and the hub, checking our time, the wheel and the hub, when we kind of settle into the hub, and there's a sense of looking at the relational world as well, we sense this ability to be connected and connect with others as well. Does this kind of extend out? I know you do talk about this beyond people. We have so many problems on this planet right now with ecological justice and our ecology, just like so much. Like it almost seems like the planet's sort of a little bit falling apart. And so, how does this? Yeah. So how does this? And this is obviously not on enough people's minds.
Yeah.
And so, how does this break through? Realizing the interconnection and the interdependence, I guess, of just people in general, but also in this planet.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful, beautiful question. Let me give kind of 3 waves of a response to it. I mean, the first is that this world, no matter what people say about things getting better, the subjective experience that you perceive with increasing depression, increasing anxiety, and increasing suicide says that the mind's experience of it is not. And that's just not an illusion. Those are epidemiological facts. So the first thing to say about something like the wheel is it has the 3 pillars of mind training, which are basically building focused attention, opening awareness, and cultivating kind intention, compassion, that research has shown can help your brain become more integrated, and an integrated brain creates a resilient life. So for any educator listening to us, or any parent listening to us, the wheel offers all three of the research-proven ways to enable a brain to grow the integrative fibers that allow it to become more resilient. So that's like awesome in these VUCA times. You know, VUCA's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. You know, so these are hard times. That I didn't make up that term.
Okay,
that's a military term, actually, that the journalists use. So I'm just using their acronym, but you know I love acronyms.
I'm with you. Yeah, I do.
Look at your face.
Right.
That's their acronym, but I think it's a cool acronym. Anyway, it's a horrible reality, but it's a cool acronym.
Yeah.
So that's number one. The second thing is, these are times when the body is incredibly stressed and prone to disease. And there are 5 ways that this 3-pillar mind training, all embedded in the one practice of the wheel, have been proven to help you. How does it help your body? Reduces stress with cortisol, the stress hormone being reduced. It improves immune function, right? It reduces inflammation by changing the molecules that control the genes that regulate inflammation. So that's really important. Number 4, it actually optimizes cardiovascular risk factors by lowering blood pressure, lowering cholesterol, and allowing the brain and the heart to communicate in a more balanced way. And number 5, it actually optimizes an enzyme called telomerase that repairs and maintains the ends of your chromosomes, kind of like the tips on shoelaces. It keeps your chromosomes healthy. And when I sent this out to Elissa Epel, who with Elizabeth Blackburn, the Nobel Prize-winning scientist, wrote the book, The Telomere Effect, Elissa Epel wrote me back and said, Dan, did you send the book to the printer yet? Which is never a good sign, when you're a writer. Yeah. You go, no, not yet. Why? What's up? She goes, you left something out. And I said, oh my God, another chapter I have to write. I said, what did I leave out? She goes, everything is accurate, but you forgot to put in that it slows the aging process.
How did you forget that?
Well, because it's audacious to say that. And so I wrote her back and I said, how can I possibly say this slows the aging process? This is the world's expert in aging, by the way. So she said, because that's what we've proven, and you need to say it. So I put it in. Yeah, because it hadn't gone to the printer yet. So you have these 5 ways that the body is better, the brain gets more integrated. So that's the second wave I just want to share with you. The third wave I just want to say is this, and it's really related to the depth of your question. I think if you had to say, what's the fundamental movement we need to try to create? It's that, and this is going to sound ridiculously simple, but it's that contemporary culture has used the 4-letter word self, S-E-L-F, S-E-L-F, self, the little small elf. Yes,
this could make a whole new cartoon.
The self,
Maddie could create a whole other
elf,
Yeah.
So the self, the self has been equated with the body, just like the mind has been equated with the brain. And it seems like, oh, what's so big about that? The problem with that is people get anxious, they get depressed, they feel isolated from each other, and they lead meaningless, disconnected lives. All good things, right? So this is terrible. And it's this hidden lie that is a lethal lie. So, I went to a high school recently where there were several suicides. And they asked me to come down, and we arranged the calendar. So, 4 or 5 months later, I was able to come. There was another suicide. And the kids are jumping in front of the train between San Francisco and San Jose.
Yeah. And
this is Palo Alto and Gun High School. And the students made a video of my intervention there. And because you only see the back of the kids' heads and the parents' heads and the teachers and the principals' heads, they let me use the video. We put it up on our website. You can watch it there. But I looked at them. You won't see their faces because I'm looking at their faces. And they're absolutely terrified. And I said to them, the problem with contemporary culture is that we think the self is in your body only. And if you make the analogy with the candle, I said to them, it's like you are told that you are just the wax of your candle. And keep in mind, this is the high school where all the Silicon Valley people send their kids for school, and it's right across from Stanford University, which has one of the lowest acceptance rates. So people who don't get in there feel like failures, which is about 98% of the people there. And so I said to them, so imagine a world that's like that. You are trying to be the shiniest candle so Stanford accepts you. And what happens? You go around in life and you see somebody else lit up, I'm going to blow out your wick, right? And I see she's lit up, I blow out her wick. So I'm the only one, shining there with my flame, and everyone's going, yeah, yeah. And I go, and so then what's going to happen? I'm going to get into like this fancy college, and I get into fancy professional school, graduate school, and then I'm going to get into a really elite graveyard. Right? And it's a lose-lose situation. I said, but imagine if you realize that you are not just the wax of your body, that who you are as a self is sure the wax. You want to sleep the body well, exercise the body, feed the body, enjoy the body. That's all wax stuff. That's great. That's a me. But I said, you are the light beyond the wax alone. And if you live like that, where you realize you are the light, and you see someone who's not lit up, what are you going to do? And they go, light them up. So I go, light them up. And what if she's not lit up? They go, light her up. So I light her up, and I straighten myself up, and I say to these kids, I said, so what did that take away from my wick, my flame, if I lit up these other people? And they go, nothing. And then someone shouts out, but it made the world a brighter place. And I said, that's the world we need. So it's not just the me, and you don't give up the me by just becoming we. It can't be me to we. Mm-hmm. It's got to be a combo, and you know this story, where MWE, M-W-E, is the integrated self, where you realize I am the wax and I am the light. And you get about 100 years to live in this waxy body, but you are not just the body. The self is broader than the brain and bigger than the body. And that's the kind of movement that we can work on together in schools, with parenting, in society, and organizations. And if we start living like that, we are an incredibly creative species. And if we drop beneath the racial biases we have, the religious biases we have, the gender biases we have, and actually enter this hub, as that parliamentarian said, what you do when you access that is this incredible sense of connection and love. That's the kind of world we can create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. Yeah, I saw John O'Donoghue coming up through you too.
He's happy about that.
Yeah.
And what you said about doing the practice, and I think John would have loved this too. Maya Angelou has this fabulous, fabulous quote where she says, people won't remember what you said. They won't remember what you did, mm-hmm. but they will remember how you made them feel. So do the Wheel of Awareness practice yourself. And for any educators in the space, I know we have heads of schools here from all over LA. Let's hear it for our heads of schools. I don't want to pressure you, but the future of the planet is dependent on the evolution of human consciousness. I'm serious about that. And humanity is ready to drop the 2,500-year lie of the separate self. I'm telling you, we have to work at the level of schools from the very beginning. We have to work at the level of parenting from the very beginning. And together, we can do this. And the issue, I think, that we're ready to experience is when you get that shift in awareness, like that parliamentarian did. I could have talked to him till the cows come home. He did the wheel. He had that experience. He goes, oh, my God, like that. We did this up in Seattle. There was a Microsoft engineer who just retired. He got into the hub. I won't take all the time to go into it, but he said, I have never felt such connection to everything and realizing we're all deeply interconnected. Now, the amazing thing, it's just what you said, Elijah, this gets weird, but this quantum state of the hub allows you to see that you are the flame. And to put it really simply, the Newtonian body we're in gets you to live like you are kind of an entity, like you're a noun. And you're born into a body, so you live your body, noun-like existence, you're an entity. And Newtonian physics is great, and it's all about entities interacting with forces and stuff like that. The quantum world is all about relationality. It's all about events and their interaction with each other. It's verb-like. So because you live in a noun-like body, you're not used to realizing that awareness is actually a verb-like experience that's fundamental to the mind. So if you could drop people into that direct perceptual experience, they will feel the reality of our interconnectedness. You know, they will feel it. And it's amazing when you give this to kids, even kids who are grown up, like the ones we did in Wisdom 2.0. There's another video you can watch on our website of the Wisdom 2.0 event. They had me do the opening keynote address. So I was given 40 minutes to basically talk to all these Silicon entrepreneurs and say, you know, the lie of the separate self that's perpetuated by the social media platforms is going to kill us. And it is up to you, I said to these 3,000 people in the audience, to actually find a way to get into this deeply interconnected reality that we have. And the thing that's so beautiful about it is when you get out of your being imprisoned on the rim and into the hub, you feel that. And it's this incredible freedom you start to feel. And from your hub and my hub, and every one of us has a hub. That plane of possibility for each of us is basically where we meet each other. We're differentiated on our rims, but the hub is where we meet. So if you can teach a child, let's say in school, that they have a hub of their mind, and that that is equally as important as the rim, and that's where curiosity comes from, we're going to have a different world where people can look right at each other and speak hub to hub, you know, plane of possibility to plane of possibility. And we do this in these workshops that we do. This is the 10,000 person study. And people just have a very different feeling. I've been doing it I did in Baltimore recently with the Congressman Elijah Cummings. And we did the Wheel of Awareness. We brought together African Americans and Caucasians who had never met before in that city, which has the highest murder rate in the country. And so what Elijah and I did was we did this whole meeting of these two groups, but we didn't just have them meet. We had them do the Wheel of Awareness, drop into the hub, and they started interacting with each other in a totally different way once they could get beneath their implicit racial biases, to get beneath these rim stuff that keeps us separated from each other. And it's something you can do, and it's just like that. It's not, I mean, it's not so hard to do.
They both did a 30-minute practice.
Yeah.
And then settled in and connected with each other.
Right.
That's what you're saying?
It was unbelievable. I mean, because when you access that place, it's what you share with each person. And when you also realize that's where love comes from. I mean, the feeling in the room from before we did the practice, we do the practice, and then afterwards, with these groups that had never met before, was entirely different.
That's powerful. It reminds me a bit of Ram Dass's practice around I'm Loving Awareness, where he kind of dips people into that essential place of knowing, which he came to found many years after practicing his own contemplative tradition. And so here what I think is so, to me, so powerful is the meeting of the way you are able to explain it in a, you know, in really just a very practical, secular, you know, way. And it's dips to this is the reality of what is.
Well, this is, Elijah, it's so interesting because people will come to me from different contemplative traditions, you know, including Ram Dass, you know, who I talked to about this, and he's very excited about it. But from any, you name the ism, and people have come to me and say, oh, that's my ism, that's my, you know, and I say, that's great. They said, well, do you know that? I go, no, I don't have any background in any ism. and they go, well, but this explains my contemplative practice or my religious approach. So what's so interesting about that is the Wheel of Awareness is 100% from scientific reasoning and clinical practice, period. It comes from basically saying, if consciousness is needed for change and integration is health, what if you integrated consciousness? That's it. That's where it comes from. It's completely science-based. So when people come to me with the different contemplative traditions, I say, that's fascinating. And I have this pile of books that I have never opened, but that people send me, you know, because there's just a different language. And so far, sticking with the science has been really useful because, you know, whether I'm speaking to mystics or people from the various religions you can imagine, you know, it's been a common ground that's created a bridge between science and spirituality and religion and mystical practices, bless you, and also to subjective experience. So it's been just an amazing journey to, and I'm so excited about the Aware book because now people can actually do the practice and start having what you call pervasive leadership. Yeah. They can take leadership for accessing the hub and creating the change in the world that we need to be, basically.
Yeah, because here in this, what you're doing is you're giving something that's actually practical that they can bring into their life and practice. And how much practice do you think it takes? You know, because there's all this research around mindfulness, but how much practice do you need? And it's different than just mindfulness, but
yeah. No, it's a great question, and people ask that. So I'll just say a couple of things. One, the research looks at these three pillars.
Yeah.
Focused attention training, open awareness training, kind intention or compassion training. And amazingly, fortunately, just by good luck, the wheel has all three. So the first two segments is focused attention. The third segment is your open awareness training, including bending the spoke around. And the fourth segment is, kind intention training. So that's just really good luck, because that's what's been studied, each of those individually. So three-pillar practice has been proven to create all the changes we said, integrating the brain, the 5 changes in the body, molecular changes of health. So this is where Alyssa Epple and others have said, this practice has all that you need. Now, if you do a survey of different research protocols, and you've done this in your own wonderful books, people will say that there are a certain number of minutes a day. Some people say 20 minutes a day. Other people say 30 minutes a day. A colleague of mine, Amishi Jha, her study with the military suggests that 12 minutes a day of dedicated practice would be a minimum, a daily dozen. So whatever you want to choose, if you can only do a minute a day, that's better than nothing. But the research, according to Amishi Jha, J-H-A, would be a daily dozen a day. The wheel, if you do the long version, can be about 20 minutes or 30 minutes, depending which one you do on our website. People really wanted a shorter one, so with each breath you can move the spoke around. That comes to about 7 minutes. Yeah, so there's a 7-minute version. I don't like to start with that because people they said, I like that one. It's like fast food, But anyway, you can try the different ones on the website and see how it goes.
Are we out of time?
We'll go to questions from the audience.
Okay, so we could go super deep in so many things, but there's probably so much wisdom in this group and questions in this group that. Is that what you wanted, Ted? You wanted to go?
Yeah, so generally at Live Talks Los Angeles, I like to remind you that questions typically start with a W or an H, sometimes a D. They are generally short. There is no such thing as a two-part question, and tonight only Elisha gets to ask follow-up questions. So who would like to go first?
So when you look at the denominators that lead to success, when it comes to age, is there any correlation to age and somebody's ability to bend the spoke into the hub?
So the question is, in this 10,000 person survey, was there an age correlation? And the Microsoft, maybe I didn't give the details, but this Microsoft engineer was 70 years old, had just retired, did not want to come to this workshop. His therapy wife dragged him, and he gets the microphone. He says, I didn't want to be here. I've never meditated before in my life, never had therapy like you therapists here. And then he gets really slow, and he goes, basically, I'll translate for him, but he said it really, really slowly with tears in his eyes in front of 500 people. He said, I went out to the park, it was at the Seattle Needle, and I see the gardener basically watering the roses, and there are birds and butterflies. Now he's crying full on, and he says, we're all one. We're all the same. So that was a 70-year-old, very reluctant, just retired Microsoft engineer. And I've done it with people in their 90s who have this experience where it doesn't seem to be age-related. What's really fascinating about it, and I talk about this at the end of the book, is it's a resource we all have available to us. It doesn't look like it's age-dependent, that when you teach, like Billy, the 5-year-old, or this person, Stuart, who's 92, it changes you when you realize you have this inner resource available to you. And that seems to be available at any age. I mean, it's really, really interesting. Yeah. Oh, we're not doing follow-up questions, but yes, thank you for your question. Because I'd have a question for you, but yes.
First of all, thanks for an amazing, enlightening discussion. You touched on it a little bit, and I just wanted to ask you about the insidious effects of technology when it comes to this conversation, and especially when it relates to the younger generation, and pertaining to social media, Instagram, Facebook, and things of that nature. And how does that, and what's your personal relationship to that, to technology, and how do you sort of navigate that?
Can you repeat that? I was just texting my friend here. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's a really, really important question. And so there's so much you could say about it. I mean, at the annual meeting, Wisdom 2.0, which you can watch for free, it's streamed for free, you can watch it. That is ultimately the topic we're all interested in. Caroline and I are in a group of about 30 of us trying to inform the Silicon Valley companies about the importance of, putting these very, very crucial questions about what the new generation is experiencing in the front of their minds. So I'm not sure what kind of impact we'll have, but at least we're trying with some other groups. So I'll just say a couple of broad things. These gadgets we have mostly have you focus on the external world and not on the internal world of the mind. So in our institute, the MindSight Institute, we're all about realizing that you have two kinds of perceptual ability, physical sight and mind sight. And they're very different. There are different circuits in the brain that mediate them. They carry out different functions, like in the media, for example. And so these physical sight things, fancy things you're seeing or photographs you're seeing of another person's life or whatever on social media platforms that are curated to look a certain way so you feel like you're missing out or you're inadequate, all these ways make a child feel so anxious and so depressed and sometimes even feel like life is meaningless and so disconnected, what's the point of going forward, that you really do, as a child psychiatrist, I can say you really need to ask the question, how is this, what's called extended cognition that's embedded in our culture, influencing the inner cognition of a child as they're growing up? So we need to really do a couple things. Put these gadgets away. That's the easiest starting place. The things that are on the gadgets, I think, need to monitor the amount of time that's going on. I was driving recently in a street right near here, and there was a kid a little bit younger than our kids who was texting while he was driving, and his car was veering left and right and left and right. And I said, oh my God, what should I do? So I pulled up to the side of him. It was a risky thing. I don't know if I should have done, but I lowered my window and I pointed to his window. He lowered his window. I said, do you realize you're texting while you're driving? And he looks at me and he goes, oh my God, I didn't realize that. Thank you for telling me. He goes, I really shouldn't. I said, right. It's like being drunk, And so he put his phone away. I don't know if that's going to have a lasting impact on him, but we need to take care of each other that way. Now, he could have thrown the phone at me, or maybe that would have been a good thing if that happened. So it's a huge issue, and there's no simple answer to it, but attention is such a limited resource, and we just really need to know, and it's public now, these app companies study addiction. They study how to get as many eyeballs to the websites and the apps. It's not just a coincidence that they're so compelling. That's what they're paid to do. So it's just like smoking, where they knew it was addictive to kids, right? And then you can get customers all the time. It's the same kind of thing with these apps. So we have to wake up to that, because it doesn't do anyone any good except the people making the money.
But now it's social, because there's a reality behind emotional and behavioral contagion. And so in that inter-self, you just have to, you get the signals everywhere you go that this is what's acceptable and this is what it's okay to do. So the programming is deeply embedded individually and relationally at this point with this. So it's an intense issue that we have.
It is, right. Yeah. And people feel so anxious when they're without these gadgets. Mm-hmm. That's why I have mine right here.
Yeah.
We have time for two more questions.
My work is promoting social emotional learning in the schools.
Good for you.
Thank you. Which about 95% of the public has never heard of, so we're doing the advocacy work for the concept of it. And I make most of the same arguments you do without the quantum element. That's new to me, but including that ecocide or nucleoside are going to get us unless we expand we accelerate the upcycle. But this is so new and interesting. It seems so good, interesting. So there's thousands of programs out there. Where are you in the relationship to the real world of schools and homes at this point, in the competition to get thinking like this and programs like this and basically this is training into the schools?
Yep, thank you. So a couple of things. One, at our institute, we have different initiatives with different individual schools and school districts. I'm given permission to say this, but in Wales, I'm their advisor for how to reorganize the social emotional learning for the whole country. I'm going to go to London and work in Great Britain. I'm open to, at any time, talking here in the United States. I spoke to 3,500 superintendents for public schools for America a couple years ago on these issues. They gave me 12 minutes. Seriously, 12 minutes. I think I took 13 maybe.
7 of it was the wheel, right?
No, exactly. This is the thing. So that's the first thing to say is, on an individual basis, I do work in Canada with different provinces there. But here in the States, I'm a part of an initiative called the Generative Social Fields Initiative. And so I'm on the board of a place called the Garrison Institute, where we're housing this work that is being centered with some professors at MIT, Peter Sangan, Otto Scharmer, and myself, along with some other centers. And we've identified a number of schools that have what we would consider prototypes of these things called generative social fields, which would be how a teacher creates in a classroom, that's the unit we're using right now, basically not only social emotional learning, but this kind of very pro-curiosity, pro-creativity, pro-compassion environment. So we've asked these 7 prototype teachers, how do you do it? And their response has been remarkably similar. I have no idea. And so we brought them together in a meeting that we had last year, and all they could say is, I don't know. So we sent out film crews, bless you, we sent out film crews to every one of those prototypes. We're bringing them in from all over the world, and next week, like a week from today, we're starting a big meeting, the first of its kind, to really look at this, because in some of the bridging work I've done, I've been asked to sort of make a bridge between SEL, social emotional learning, and the mindfulness in schools movement, which, believe it or not, hadn't talked to each other, but they're really all about mindsight. How do you teach about the mind? So, our work at the Mindsight Institute in all these different initiatives is to try to do that. And so far, that's been a nice way to do it, just get involved in other people's work, but we're there for consultation if that's relevant for your particular work.
And our final question for the evening.
Hello, Dr. Siegel. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Pretty good. I have a question. If mind is an emergent property, will artificial intelligence have their own mind?
So, I was once on a panel with, oh God, what's his name? Who's the guy who invented the synthesizer? Ray. Yeah, so Ray Kurzweil and I were on a panel with a couple other people, and this was the big issue. And of course, in the whole, what's it called, the unity thing, the singularity thing, they think that's true. Here was my position then, this was years ago, a long time ago actually, and it's still my position, is that the mind is embodied and relational. And the qualities of mind that we experience as humans is not independent of the body, right? And machines don't have bodies. They don't have hearts, which is one of the original brains. They don't have intestines, which is also the original brain. They don't have hormones streaming through their bloodstream. They don't have millions and millions and millions of years of evolution that, for good or for bad, have created all sorts of factors in our DNA. that shape the structure of our body, the incredible social nature of our mammalian heritage, the intricate nature of our primate heritage, the amazing things we've been able to achieve for all sorts of reasons we haven't gotten into tonight about basically the social nature of being a human who has something unlike almost any other mammal called alloparenting. And alloparenting is where we give our youth to people who aren't the birth parents. We live in a village. What that meant is we had to look at the mind of the other probably before we even knew our own mind. And machines don't do that. They don't do any of that stuff. So I'm really not that worried that Siri is ever going to become a human being. Now, she said some pretty amazing things, and I'm not even supposed to say it's a she, but I was once in a lecture, and, you know, I really couldn't understand what the lecturer was saying. This was at our lectures. You know, it's our annual meeting that we have. And I couldn't understand what this lecturer was saying. And then suddenly Siri says, "I don't understand what you're saying." And I thought, oh my God, she's reading my mind. So, I mean, there are some fun things. And if you have never asked Siri, like, what's the meaning of life? And she says chocolate, you know she's right and has a lot of wisdom. So I'm not so worried about it. And I know people all get all in the singularity, this and that. You know, these machines do not have bodies. And you know what it would take to create the miracle of this body? It would take millions and millions of years of evolution. There's no scientist, no engineer that's going to design a body. And so that's my response to you. I'm not so worried about it. You can have an emergent property, by the way, that's dependent on its context. So the context is you're in a body. The context is we have these relationships. And, you know, when you really dive deeply into just that and the nature of consciousness and the fact that, and if you get to the part on the Newtonian realm and the quantum realm, and the fact that in science we've demonstrated these two realms exist. This isn't just like fiction.
Well, that was my second part.
Okay, well, good. I'm reading your mind. No, I'm reading your mind. You can, yeah. But here's, I'll just say this as just a finishing up of the first part response, that because we have these two realms, we're going to be in for so much wonderful cultural evolution that can be intentionally nudged toward a self that is deeply relational and deeply embodied. And for all of the parents in the room, the educators in the room, and all of us just as citizens on the planet, if we start living like we are the flame beyond the wax alone, we're going to have a whole different world. Just try it out and you'll see.